Imagine you are flying a commercial airliner at 30,000 feet. Like, the passengers are happy, the bills are paid, and you're just cruising along.
Right, everything is working fine, no turbulence.
Yeah, exactly. But then suddenly your business mentor radios the cockpit with this terrifying piece of advice.
Yeah.
They say, in order to fly faster and reach a better destination, you need to turn off the engines, rip them off the wings, and build entirely new ones.
Oh, wow.
Right. Oh, and, try not to crash while you do it.
That is just, I mean, that's incredibly panic-inducing.
It totally is. And that is exactly what being told to niche down feels like. When you are already a successful independent professional or founder, I mean, you are making money, things are working, but you've kind of hit a plateau.
Yeah, you're stuck.
And every single piece of advice out there basically tells you to fire the very people who are currently funding your life.
It's the universal prescription for growth, but simultaneously it's the universal trigger for a very specific kind of operational panic. You look at your roster of clients and you just think, if I narrow my focus, I'm going to starve.
Exactly. And that tension, that exact fear, is the core of our source material today. We have access to this totally fascinating transcript from an invisible counsel AI session.
Which is such a cool concept.
It really is. It features a founder named Sean, who essentially walks into a virtual room with 4 legendary business minds. We're talking Alex Hormozi, Dan Kennedy, Dan Sullivan, and Frank Kern.
A heavy-hitting room.
Seriously. And he poses this exact dilemma to them. He asks, how do I niche down without blowing up the revenue I already have?
And what makes this session so uniquely valuable is that these 4 titans, they do not agree right away, like at all.
No, they totally clash.
Yeah, they attack the problem from entirely different angles. You have data crashing into economics and psychology colliding with operational reality. And out of that friction, they build this highly practical master framework.
So whether you are, running a massive agency or building a freelance portfolio or just trying to define your personal brand at work, this deep dive is your shortcut to mastering focus without sacrificing your current success. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the specific panic of niching down and how Alex Hormozi fundamentally reframes the whole problem.
Yeah, so Hormozi's opening move in this transcript, it offers an immediate, massive sigh of relief.
For sure.
He looks at Sean's fear of losing revenue and points out a fundamental cognitive error that, honestly, almost all of us make. He says, you are blending 2 completely independent decisions into one.
Okay, what are the 2 decisions?
Decision number 1 is, who do I pursue next? And decision number 2 is, who do I keep serving today?
Man, when you lay it out like that, it seems so obvious.
Yeah.
But when you are in the thick of running a business, those decisions feel glued together. You just assume that pivoting your strategy requires you to send a mass email tomorrow, firing half your clients.
Precisely. But Hormozi introduces this highly pragmatic rule. He says, cash flow buys you time to get smarter.
Oh, I love that.
Right. You keep the current revenue flowing because that funds your life, it funds your payroll and your peace of mind. You only narrow your focus on future acquisition. Basically, keep the cash, narrow the hunt.
Keep the cash, narrow the hunt. But the mechanism of how he tells you to narrow that hunt is what really stands out to me. Like, he completely rejects the idea of picking a niche based on passion or, just guessing what the market wants.
Oh, yeah, he is all about the number.
Entirely. He relies on a completely evidence-based engine to find your ideal customer profile, your ICP. He basically tells Sean to open up his historical data and rigorously evaluate his past and current clients against 4 specific criteria.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, who got the absolute best result? Second, who paid the most without flinching or negotiating? Third, who is the easiest to sell to because their pain was just so obvious? And fourth, who is the easiest to actually deliver the work to? And the overlap of those 4 answers, that is your true ICP. It forces you away from these vague categories, like saying you serve small businesses or creatives. Hormozi actually says vague is expensive.
Vague is expensive. That hits hard.
It does. And the mechanics behind that are pretty simple. When you are vague, your marketing just blends in. And when you blend in, you become a commodity. And commodities, well, they always end up competing on price, which just destroys your margins.
He actually drives this home with a brilliant quote. He says, your strategy is what you say no to.
Oh, that's really good.
Right. Strategy isn't some vision board you create at a corporate retreat. It is the very real moment a check shows up on your desk from a random out-of-niche client, and you have the discipline to say, no, that is not what we do anymore.
Yeah, and to put this into practice, Hormozi gives Sean a 90-day narrowing test.
How does that work?
For the next 3 months, you change absolutely nothing about how you treat your current clients. No grand announcements, no rebranding. But you point 100% of your new marketing spend and outreach at that specific evidence-backed ICP.
Okay.
You then track 3 operational metrics: close rate, average deal size, and delivery margin. If your historical data was correct, all 3 of those numbers should rise.
It is a brilliantly clean, low-risk data play. But I actually have to push back here, because this is where my own alarm bells started ringing when reading the transcript.
Really? Why?
Well, if I strictly look at my past data, couldn't I accidentally niche myself into a microscopic corner? Like, let's say my internal data reveals that my absolute best, easiest to serve client is a left-handed dentist who owns a parakeet.
Right, a super specific anomaly.
Exactly. The data is flawless. It meets all 4 criteria, but there might only be 3 of those people in the entire world. I mean, I can't build a sustainable business on that.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the exact flaw of relying solely on historical internal data without looking at external market reality. Your data might literally be pointing you toward a cliff. And this is exactly where Dan Kennedy's philosophy enters the discussion to challenge Hormozi's data-only approach.
Right. Kennedy steps in and essentially says, your data is great for spotting trends, but you are completely ignoring the economics of scale. Now, to be fair, they do agree on protecting the cash flow. Kennedy actually hilariously refers to the impulse of firing paying clients for the sake of strategic purity as consultant theater.
Consultant theater. That's so accurate. What's fascinating here is how Kennedy fundamentally redefines the concept of a niche.
How so?
Well, when most of us hear niche down, we just picture starvation. We think we are just accepting a smaller audience. But Kennedy argues that a niche is not a smaller audience. It is a manageable target market that you can completely dominate. He uses the concept of a farm.
Wait, a farm? So the goal isn't just to find a smaller pond to fish in, but to find a piece of land you can actually put a fence around, irrigate, and own.
Yes.
Wow. That completely changes the psychological approach to niching.
Exactly. You are cultivating a specific territory. And to ensure you aren't building a farm on barren land, Kennedy forces you to run the external mass before you reposition. You have to answer, how many eligible buyers actually exist in this space?
Right.
What is the lifetime value of one of those buyers over a 3 to 5 year period? And crucially, what percentage of that market can you practically reach?
The source material highlights this mind-blowing anecdote to prove his point. Kennedy talks about Marty Fort, who's known as the music school guy. Globally, there are only about 8,500 music school owners.
That's tiny.
In the grand scheme of business, yeah, that is a microscopic market. Most advisors would tell you to broaden your scope. Yeah. But Marty built a 7-figure business specifically for them. He succeeded because the lifetime value of those specific owners was incredibly high and because they were entirely reachable.
And that reachability is the linchpin. To prevent the whole left-handed parakeet dentist scenario, Kennedy introduces a rigorous 4-part ICP test.
What are the parts?
First, can this target market pay more as they improve and grow? Second, is the transaction size large enough to justify your customer acquisition cost?
Makes sense.
Third, do they have a demonstrated history of buying expertise in the past? And fourth, and most importantly, are they reachable through existing channels? Like, do they go to specific conferences? Do they read specific trade journals? Can you buy a mailing list with their names on it?
And Kennedy's punchline on this is just brutal. He says, if your target market doesn't meet those 4 criteria, you don't actually have an ICP. You have a fantasy demographic.
Ouch. But it is a necessary reality check. You just cannot build a business on a ghost town, no matter how good your historical data looks.
Okay, so if we pause and look at where we are, Hormozi is giving us the internal data engine, and Kennedy has given us the external market economics. But there's a massive hidden trap here that the transcript dives into next.
Yeah, the operational nightmare.
Exactly. Even if the math works perfectly, operating this split personality business, like managing a messy roster of legacy clients while simultaneously trying to cultivate a highly specific new farm that can absolutely destroy a founder's mental health.
Yeah.
We really have to look at the psychology and operations of managing that divide.
Which brings us to Dan Sullivan's macro-level wisdom. Sullivan looks at Sean and identifies a profound mindset trap that keeps founders stuck.
What's the trap?
Entrepreneurs tend to look at the people currently paying them, their messy, diverse roster of legacy clients, and they internalize that as their identity. They think, this is who I serve, so this is who I am.
Right.
But Sullivan argues that your current clients are merely evidence of what you did in the past. They are the results of past marketing. The future must lead the business, and your past has to justify itself to that future.
It's a fundamental shift from being reactive to being proactive. But how do you actually measure that in your day-to-day operations?
He has a tool for that.
Yeah, Sullivan introduces a diagnostic tool that is incredibly visceral. It's called the 10x client test. I actually want you, the listener, to try this right now. Think about the very last invoice you sent or the last project you closed. If you had to work with 10 clones of that exact client next week, would your business become simpler, more profitable, and more joyful? Or would you want to quit your own company because the complexity would just crush you?
It is a devastatingly effective test because it exposes the truth that not all revenue is good revenue.
Yeah.
Some clients look fantastic on your profit and loss statement, but they are quietly bankrupting you operationally. They demand custom pricing structures, they require special delivery exceptions that break your team's workflow, or, they demand constant emotional babysitting.
Yes. And Sullivan perfectly labels this as complexity disguised as cash flow.
And that complexity compounds. One wrong-fit client does not just consume an hour of your time. They force your operations team to build custom, one-off workflows. They dilute your marketing message because you try to keep your website broad enough so they don't feel alienated. They literally drain the finite energy you need to properly serve your absolute best clients.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Sullivan issues this ultimate warning about those high-complexity clients.
Yeah.
He says, do not let wrong-fit clients become design authorities in your business.
Ah, that's a powerful phrase, design authorities.
Yeah, they can be customers for a season, absolutely. You can take their money today to keep the lights on, but they cannot be the architects of your future operations. In the transcript, they actually share the origin story of Sullivan's own organization's strategic coach.
Oh, right.
Very early on, they established a rigid, exclusionary rule, entrepreneurs only. No corporate executives, no nonprofit leaders, no matter how much they were willing to pay. That single rule became their moat. It eliminated operational complexity and kept their value proposition incredibly high.
So Sullivan is deeply focused on your identity, your energy, and protecting the future architecture of your business. But then Frank Kern enters the conversation to ground these high-level ideas into visceral reality.
Back down to earth.
Yeah, exactly. It is great to identify a future identity, but Kern asks a very uncomfortable question. Can you actually tangibly guarantee the result you are promising this new, highly specific niche?
Kern's mechanism for filtering this is radical. He tells Sean to imagine that a new law gets passed tomorrow. This law states that you cannot take a single dime from a client until they achieve the exact result you promised them in your marketing. Under the extreme pressure of that law, who do you still take on as a client? That is your real ICP.
It forces absolute honesty about your own capabilities. Because the hidden mechanics of fulfillment are ruthless. When you take on a client you aren't perfectly equipped to help, the hidden costs like customer support tickets, endless revisions, managing their frustration and potential refunds, all of that completely wipes out the initial cash injection you receive from closing the sale.
It totally backfires.
Right. So Kern's argument is that you should only build your farm around the specific people you can undeniably, predictably win for.
To illustrate why this works so well for acquisition, he shares a great example about a dog training business. If someone has a dog with behavioral issues and they search online for dog training, they might click around and compare prices.
Sure.
But if they search and find a landing page entirely dedicated to Shih Tzu behavioral training, they stop searching immediately. They think, that is exactly for me. The underlying mechanics of the product, basic behavioral dog training, are exactly the same. But the extreme specificity creates immediate trust, and trust accelerates the sale.
That is so true.
But hold on, when I read this part of the transcript, I immediately thought, if I only take clients where success is a 100% guarantee, aren't I just playing it safe? Like, if I optimize solely for the easiest possible fulfillment, I would be leaving the most complex, high-paying, and innovative problems on the table.
And that exact pushback is what triggers the best collision in the entire transcript.
The clash.
Yes. Dan Kennedy steps right back in to challenge Kern's guarantee law. Kennedy warns that if you optimize only for immediate ease and guaranteed success, you might accidentally optimize for comfort. You might choose a farm that is easy to manage but has low yield, missing out on a much richer market that has a deeper, more expensive wound to heal. Kennedy's mandate is don't shrink to comfort.
Don't shrink to comfort. Wow.
This raises an important question for you to evaluate in your own strategy. Are you narrowing your focus just to make your day-to-day life easier and avoid difficult client conversations? Or are you narrowing your focus to provide massive, transformative value and achieve market dominance in a highly profitable farm?
That's a huge distinction.
Yeah, there's a profound difference between hiding in a comfortable, low-stakes niche and actively conquering a lucrative one.
So what does this all mean? We have Hormozi telling us to look at internal data. Kennedy is making us calculate external market size. Sullivan is warning us about the psychological trap of complexity. And Kern is forcing us to be honest about our fulfillment capabilities.
It's a lot to balance.
It is. How does Sean, and how do you listening right now, actually execute this without causing a mutiny among the legacy clients who are currently paying the bills?
Well, this is where the AI Council synthesizes all of these competing perspectives into a single, elegant operational solution. They call it the cash flow airlock, or sometimes the two-bank niche test.
The tagline that comes out of this is my favorite part of the entire session. Don't niche down, gate up.
It is a brilliant psychological insight. The realization they come to is that your legacy clients are not actually threatened by the fact that you want to specialize. What threatens them is the feeling of being abandoned. They are threatened by the public optics of being demoted to second-class citizens on your website.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel like an afterthought.
Exactly. So the mechanism to solve this is to build what they call a revenue-safe front door.
I think the best way to visualize this is to think of a restaurant. It's like keeping your standard all-day diner open to pay the rent and keep your regular customers happy while you use the kitchen in the back to test a high-end, highly profitable omakase menu for a very specific type of foodie. You don't board up the diner until the omakase concept is fully booked and proven.
That is the exact dynamic. And the transcript lays out a literal step-by-step action plan to build this airlock in your own business. Step 1 is the data phase. You open a spreadsheet and list your last 20 clients.
Okay.
You literally score them in columns based on Hormozi's metrics. Who got the best results? What was the margin? How easy was the sale? Then you add columns for Sullivan's energy drain and the 10x test. Finally, you score them against Kern's guarantee law. You color code the winners, and where the highest scores overlap, you have officially identified your farm.
That makes it so concrete. Step 2 is where you weaponize that data. You write a one-sentence value proposition for that specific farm. But here is the critical mechanism. That sentence must actively exclude people.
Yeah.
If your website currently says, "We have businesses grow," you are failing the test. It needs to say something like, "We help B2B SaaS companies under $5 million in revenue eliminate churn." If someone runs a local bakery, they read that and are instantly excluded. That exclusion is what makes the message magnetic to the SaaS founder.
And then comes step 3, the actual testing phase. For the next 90 days, you run that highly specific exclusionary message strictly through your front door. The front door consists of your outbound outreach, your targeted digital ads, and specific landing pages.
Meanwhile, the back room, your current operations, your general website, and your communication with legacy clients, that all keeps humming along exactly as it always has. You do not make a dramatic LinkedIn post announcing your massive strategic pivot.
Please don't do that.
Right. The quote they use in the room to describe this is hilarious. You don't announce a divorce to find a better date. You test your narrow ICP in marketing channels and media that your legacy herd doesn't even consume. You build a much tighter, heavily guarded front door, but all the money feeds into the exact same cash register.
It is the ultimate form of risk mitigation. You prove that the new hyper-focused business model actually works operationally and financially before you ever make it your public identity. You let the new, highly profitable buyers earn the right to become the company's future architecture, all while your existing cash flow funds the entire transition safely behind the airlock.
It completely removes the terror of the process. So to wrap this up, the major takeaway here is that your fear of losing revenue by niching down is based on a flawed assumption. Specificity doesn't shrink your business, it focuses your resources on the highest yield targets. The truth is, by refusing to build that airlock, you are already losing revenue right now by being vague, safe, and entirely forgettable to the people who would happily pay you the most.
But before we sign off, I want to point to a fascinating, unresolved tension from the very end of the session, just something for you to mull over. After laying out this master framework, the council left Sean with one final warning.
What was it?
How narrow can you get before a rich farm becomes an elegant trap? Meaning, you can become so hyper-specific with your demographics that you build a beautiful cage of your own precision, walling yourself off from adjacent markets that desperately need your exact methodology.
An elegant trap. That is a terrifying thought, after doing all that work to niche down.
And here's an extrapolation of that warning to explore on your own. What if the ultimate way to escape the elegant trap isn't by broadening your demographic target back up again? Based on the council's warning, what if your true bulletproof niche isn't a demographic at all, but a psychographic?
Oh, wait, so moving away from titles and industries entirely.
Exactly. Think about it. Instead of targeting left-handed dentists in Ohio, what if your farm is a shared mindset? What if your true niche is a specific anxiety, an operational bottleneck, or a core belief system that your ideal clients hold, regardless of whether they run a tech startup, a manufacturing plant, or a music school? Demographics describe who people are on paper, but psychographics describe the mechanics of how they actually make decisions. And mastering that layer of psychology might be the ultimate uncopyable way to gate up your business.
That completely reframes the entire concept of a target market. You don't have to turn off the engine while you're flying at 30,000 feet. You just build the new, hyper-efficient engine in the background, run the math, test it in the airlock, and when it's undeniably ready, you seamlessly shift the power over and accelerate.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Right.
Take a hard look at your own farm today, run your last 20 clients through that spreadsheet, and start building your front door. We'll catch you on the next one.